obviously Tesla's been doing a lot just across the board with the cars and the stuff you're tearing apart. I mean, are there any other kind of EV manufacturers that you're seeing that kind of is they're doing their own unique thing, or that's kind of standing out, or is it just pretty much all the entries that you're seeing are just kind of been not even worth reviewing or looking more into?
If we look at battery technology and you look at battery companies, there's some really interesting things that are going on. But the OEMs don't make their own batteries. They want to buy this and they want to buy that. And so consequently, they don't have, that's not part of their core competency. Maybe in the future, but certainly now, not now. Electronics wise, it's hard to beat Tesla. The only guys that I think could come close, there are some Chinese guys that are pretty good, but I think the only company that could come close is Volkswagen. Volkswagen is the only one that I look at and see, because things happen. As a consultant and whatnot, people are asking about this or asking about that, and sometimes we get into a situation with a customer, and they say, "Look, we can't hire you, but how about looking at this and just telling what you think," especially in this day and age where, everything is, everyone's struggling. And from what I can see, the only one that really and truly has something that's unique or better or exciting is Volkswagen. That's it. I mean, and Volkswagen, as you know, owns Audi and Porsche and whatever. But they, I think they had a diesel problem, and I think that the diesel issue actually was a disaster for them, but it also forced them into looking at how do we get rid of this ugly stigma of being, guys that are trying to pollute the planet. And so consequently, as they moved into EVs, they went in a big way. And, the Germans are very, very famous for coming up with good ideas and moving in a new direction really quite quickly, much faster than we'd see here. So and they're very inventive, and they still have tradesmen, and they still have lots of engineers that they're pushing out the door. We have a hard time. In fact, I've got, I will tell you, I hire foreigners because they're looking to get into the United States. They've been well trained, and if I could, I'd hire as many German engineers as I could. They get excited about things. Germans and British engineers.
Do you think it's interesting that's what you're saying about Volkswagen, because that's, at least publicly, that's definitely been really the message, and the products they're announcing definitely aligns with that. So it's definitely interesting to hear that from someone like yourself, who's much more to beyond the PR and marketing things and actually seeing the product and dealing with who's making the decisions and actually executing. Do you think, I mean, and that example you give is perfect, where it is Volkswagen kind of had a moment where they had to decide who they're going to be moving forward, because they had such a huge incident. Do you think that is really the only motivating reason that a domestic or some other auto OEM will really kind of change the course of the ship to finally invest and kind of go all in? Because from a lot, at least my perception from what I've seen in kind of the at least the domestic auto industry, and once again, Volkswagen does have to deal with some of those European regulations. It's been more of a kind of putting the foot in to kind of test the waters and slow, gradual kind of release and meet whatever ZEV credit mandates that California or some state is requiring, versus kind of making the full investment to go in. Do you think that's going to be what continues, or do you think there is going to be something other than they realize that's the only thing that's selling that's going to motivate them to get into that kind of space more aggressively?
Okay, so there's a guy, his name is Joel Barker, and he talks about something called paradigms. They're the boxes that you live in. And Joel Barker says, when a paradigm shifts, everyone goes back to zero. And I believe that that's where we are right now. The paradigm is shifting. And he has lots and lots of examples of people who saw that the paradigm could move, but decided to stay where they were and then basically vanished. One of the best is the quartz movement watch that was invented by the Swiss. They chose not to get involved, and they basically walked away from the quartz watch because they had so much invested in the gears and the fine detail that they could crank out inside their shop. And so consequently, they lost almost the whole market to basically Texas Instruments and Seiko. Seiko Watch Company, I mean, blew everybody away. Everybody had one of these little watches. They were dead accurate. You could get them stylish, or you could get them whatever you want. But now everybody has a watch with a battery in it. And yet the Swiss at the time thought that that was just ridiculous. Who's going to want to buy a battery when all you have to do is, that kind of thing. I think we are in that same situation. And I think that these guys, I think a lot of them are going to hold on, and there's another thing that it's called scotoma. It's where there's something right in front of you, but you can't see it. It's a psychological problem. And again, Joel Barker says, when the expectations don't match the results, people physiologically cannot see the data. And I think that there's a lot of OEM guys that are into that situation. It's right in front of them, but they can't see it. So if you think about it, maybe you've gone into the basement looking for a hammer or something like that. You look around, you can't find it. And so you yell at your wife and say, "Hey, do you move the hammer?" And she comes down and she picks it up because it was right in front of you and you didn't see it. And that's because the brain has got power over the eyes. And if the brain says, "I can't see you," no, it's not here. It's not here. Someone moved it. Someone moved it. You physiologically can't see the data. The same thing I think is true with happening is in fact happening with a lot of the OEMs. The guys that basically ran into the barrier, and I mean that sincerely when I'm talking about VW, they ran into that barrier with the diesel problem. They had no other choice than to move into some other direction. And I call that the luxury of adversity. When you're right up against the brick wall, your brain works a lot faster. I mean, it's one thing to sit in a hammock or, like you say, put your toe in the water. It's quite another if you're, in an airplane and it's headed for the ground and you're allegedly going to be the only guy that's going to be able to pull this thing out of the steep dive. You learn how to fly a plane in like about 2 seconds, right? If I pull it back, maybe that's what's going to happen. You're going to have somebody like that trying to pull the airplane or steer the ship in a new direction because you're headed for a big rock or you're headed straight for planet Earth.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to visit our website, connectingthegrid.com. There you can listen to our podcasts, contact us about sponsorship, or even be a guest on Grid Connections. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a positive rating on your favorite podcast or video streaming service. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out a lot too. Thank you again, and I look forward to us learning more together soon.